Happy New Year, witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're gonna look at year cards and how you can calculate your own year card for 2025 based on your own birth date. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, and on there you can do a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5, and for the month of January 2025 you can still get a year-ahead reading with me that includes your year card. And for the foreseeable future, all my profits from tarot reading go directly to support Cuccias to Gaza, who are part of the mutual aid groups that support Palestinian refugees evacuate and relocate to Egypt. So if you decide to support me there, thank you so very much. And also don't forget, we are in phase 2 of Witches for Palestine. The raffle draw is imminent. So if you would like to join, do a donation to Cuccias to Gaza directly and send us proof of that donation. All the details are in the link down in the description below. I have points. This time I have points. So year cards bring together tarot and numerology. So that's what we're talking about in this video. You can calculate your own lifetime cards and then your year cards. All that information is actually part of the book Archetypal Tarot by Mary K. Greer, and it's inspired by the work of Angeles Arrien, who had written the Tarot Handbook. That is more hard to find nowadays because it's a book from the 90s, but if you're lucky you should find it on eBay. I will put links down in the description below if I find it. But Archetypal Tarot by Mary K. Greer is the updated version of Who Are You in the Tarot, and it goes through tarot constellations, and so what cards given your birth date assign a mood to you, let's say your lifetime card, your soul card, your purpose card. There's a lot of cards that you can calculate. But specifically, we're going to look into year cards, and so that gives the idea of the mood of the year to come for you specifically. And it's literally based around your date of birth and the current year. And numerologically, you add the numbers until you get a number between 0 and 22, because there are 22 major arcana. The Fool is considered number 22 because you cannot add up to 0. And basically there are at least 2, if not 3 cards usually, that can reduce to the same number from 1 to 9. That is more important when we calculate our lifetime cards though, which is not the subject of this video. If you would like though to calculate your lifetime cards and you would like me to make a video about it, let me know in the comments down below. I made this. So a couple of disclaimers and premises before we get into the calculation. First question that surprisingly Mary K. Greer addresses is, well, there are so many calendars. The Chinese calendar is like 5,000 or something years old. There's the Jewish calendar, there's the Muslim calendar. Why? Why do we calculate it based on the day and the month and the year of the Gregorian calendar? Why do we consider 2025 rather than the year 5000 or something? Because different calendars are based on different things, different cultures specifically. I'm gonna go directly in what Mary K. Greer says because she covers it perfectly. So you might ask how such an arbitrary system could have any validity for us. Well, we are tied to our own perception of time inculcated from childhood. Our definitions of time literally structure how we perceive it, and we are not really free to rid ourselves of this learned understanding. By being Americans or Westerners, we are fated to relate to time in the way we do, and to know that February follows January. It is part of our cultural conditioning. This is nothing we have individually caused, nor are we in any practical way responsible for it, but we are responsible for what we are going to do with it. And the shorter practical version is, I don't know how it works, but it does. Which is basically the kind of answer that I would give about everything in witchcraft. And to be fair, during these festivities, I have been reading Caliban and the Witch by Silvia Federici, which unexpectedly, she's an actual philosopher and anthropologist, not necessarily a witch, but the way that she studies witchcraft and magic and superstition and how it was eradicated from culture to move into capitalism is incredibly fascinating, and it's actually the most valid argument that I have heard so far to concede to magic something ineffable. Like you've heard me say it before, I love when there's something practical, empirical, that can sort of go along with magic. So when we talk about meditative states, talking about the state of alpha or beta or delta that you can technically measure for frequency in your brain. And oh, it's nice when those things come together. But the more I read Caliban and the Witch, the more I understand how the ruling class has extirpated the values of magic and wonder from us, the less I start to feel the need to explain things, especially when they work. And in the case of year cards, it's spooky. There's another point to be made about years. Do we count years from the 1st of January or from our birthday, considering that to calculate a year card, you calculate it from your birth date? So day of the month you were born, month you were born, and the current year. That's how you calculate your year card. We'll go into the detail of the maths after this, but the question remains of, especially if you're born in the second half of the year, so past June, when do you start to feel the effects of your year card? And according to Mary K. Greer, it's duplicitous, which I don't think is the right word. It's dichotomous. It's twofold. You might ask yourself, when does my year card begin? On January 1st or on my birthday? The answer is both. There are two different cycles that overlap to some extent, depending on how late your birthday is in the year. It is easiest to recognize and identify the outer events that happen to you, January to January, rather than your inner motivations and modes of expression, birthday to birthday. Those with birthdays in the last 2 months may find most of their association with a card falling in the following calendar year. For instance, at the beginning of a Hermit year, all your friends seem suddenly unavailable. At parties, you can't seem to connect. Thus, you are forced into spending more time alone. By your birthday, you've realized how much you can accomplish as you enjoy the time to complete things and do some reflecting. Then in January, as you move into a Wheel of Fortune year, outer events cycle, you are thrown into the whirl of social events and sudden opportunities. You react at first with the prudence and circumspection that you came to trust in your Hermit year, while wishing that those peaceful moments of solitude would return. By your birthday, you are at home in the world. So this is just something to keep in mind. The general feeling of a year card calculated might come from external events from January 1st. The way that then it applies to you and you get into the gist of it might be related to your birthday more. There's one final point before we go to calculate, and it's years have cards of their own. You literally calculate it by adding the digits of the year. So for 2025, it's 2 plus 2 plus 5, 9. It's a Hermit year in general. That's the mood of 2025. Then it applies more specifically to you, depending on what your own year card will be, based on your date of birth, which is day and month that you were born, along with 2025. Let's give an example. So the example that Mary K. Greer brings for lifetime cards actually is the birthday of Frida Kahlo. The birthday of Frida Kahlo was the 6th of July 1907. Specifically, if we wanted to calculate the year card for 2025 for Frida Kahlo, we would do the addition this way. 6, the day she was born, plus 7, the month she was born, July, plus 2025. You will get 2038. You go to add those digits until you get a number between 1 and 22, one of the major arcana. So 2 plus 3, 5, plus 8, 13. It would be a death year for her. However, you can calculate cards and reduce them down, as you can guess, 2 ways. You add numbers, like I've just done, 6 plus 7 plus 2025, you get 2038, and then you add the digits. Or you start off by calculating it, adding digit by digit. So 6 plus 7 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5. In that case, for Frida, we would get 22 rather than 13. Why is that? Well, you can tell that adding digits or adding numbers at the end gets the same root number. Basically, would all go down to 4, and the numbers that by adding the digits would give you 4, which include 13, that, and 22, the full, 2 plus 2, 4, 1 plus 3, 4. There are many different ways to add the numbers in your birth date. All of them result in the same single digit or root number. All of them are valid in their own way. The most important thing is that you always use the same method and that you get to know that method's pattern and intricacies for yourself. So Mary Kay Greer in her books suggests to use the addition of numbers. So say that you were born on the 12th of September. It's 12 plus 9 plus 2025. Well, in my experience, to me, it works best by adding the single digits. So you would do 1 plus 2 for 12, plus 9 for September, plus 2 plus 2 plus 5 for 2025. I'm using this method because one thing that Mary Kay Greer suggests one does, and it's very useful admittedly, is calculate all the year cards for the years that you have already lived. And when you do that, you sort of see a pattern coming through. To me, the most emblematic was noticing that I've had 3 tower years in my life so far, and I think, have 1 or 2 to come. My tower years were the only times in which I brushed with homelessness. One of the things that Mary Kay Greer goes into reading a tower card year is about the way that external factors can affect your life and change things on a fundamental level. Interestingly, for the death years instead, there still happens to be this change, but that usually is incited by something internal rather than external factors. For example, the year that Raven and I were married was a death year for Raven because it was a crucial change in their lives. For me, it was a sun year, so it was a celebration of everything. The same goes for like the change of a crucial career that I had in 2010. For me, that was a death year, and it was literally the breaking down and rebuilding something completely different. But it was an internal process. The years that I've experienced brushes with homelessness, like 2013 and 2022, those were external factors. Like the best that I could do was keeping myself afloat the best possible way. The reason why I've started to calculate the years digit by digit rather than by number is exactly because looking back, I can see that those were tower years. If I'd calculated them by adding numbers, instead of 16, the tower, I would have got 7, the chariot. And looking at what happened in my life in those years, those didn't have the energy of the chariot, which by all means, it's an energy of warrior at times, but the kind of things that were happening was more everything is taken down, including your cornerstones. So that felt definitely, I mean, when you find something that is so crucially changing, like quite literally losing your home, that's a tower year. So in my experience, I calculate year cards digit by digit. So in the case of the 12th of September, I would add 1 plus 2 plus 9, and then the digits for 2025, so 2 plus 2 plus 5. And if the 12th of September is your day of birth, your card for 2025 would be 21, the world. But if you calculate it by numbers, so you do 12 plus 9 plus 2025, you would get 2046. So when you then reduce it, adding the digits 2 plus 4 plus 6, you would get 12 instead of 21. You can see that the digits still add to the same number, which would be 3 in the end. But if you get a number less or equal to 22, you stop there, you don't reduce it further. And for you to figure out whether adding numbers or adding digits immediately is best for you, it's something that you identify by calculating the previous year cards in my experience. For me, joy to the world, the 2025 is going to be a sun year. To give you an idea of a sun year, the sun year represents success. It augurs the birth of a new project conceived in the dreams and imagination of the previous year. the moon. You radiate goodwill and people love to bask in the light of your enthusiasm and happiness. You arrive at new realizations, situations that were cloudy last year become clear and secrets may be revealed. You will be relieved of the fears you have been carrying, reconciliation with others are possible now. If you have kept faith with your dreams, now you will reap the rewards. The lesson involves recognizing where the center of your universe lies. What makes you happy? What is your gravity center? Be warm-hearted and generous, you can afford it and will be rewarded in turn. Generally speaking, it's a lucky year, many opportunities will present themselves, so be ready to respond. 2016 was my last sun year. It's the year that Raven proposed and we got married and I finally started to cut ties with the abuse that I experienced in childhood. It was a good year. 2007 was the year before that of the sun, and it's the year where I got my first job and I got transferred to the UK and my life actually started. I can see the sun in the way that Mary describes it and calculating it my way, digit by digit, accurate, problematically accurate. It's one of those things that quite literally make you somewhat believe in magic. At least in my case, they are, problematically accurate. So do let me know, do you already calculate your birth cards and year cards? What method do you use? What year is it going to be 2025 for you? And if you'd like to ask me, like my interpretation, do let me know what year 2025 is going to be for you. And I'll give you my interpretation based on my experience in the years that have already gone by. If you would like a year ahead spread that includes your calculated year card and interpretation of that, that is an option on my coffee until the end of the month. I hope this video was useful, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I love to talk about this stuff. Numbers are just, I'm not that great at maths anymore, but I used to be, and I like the rationality supposedly of numbers, except when you actually then have irrational numbers, which is another entire story. But yes, this is how you calculate your year card for every year. Was this useful? I really hope so. And until the next video, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's need for it.